Great. So welcome everyone. We are ready to start. Glad to have you here today with us in the presentation of Cubbit DS3 Composer. Uh, can you please share the slides? Oh, great. So there we are. So build your own cloud storage in minutes with Cubbit DS3 Composer is the title of the webinar today. We are glad to have you here with many people from different countries have joined for this specific webinar where we have the pleasure of having also Marco Moscatini, our CTO and co-founder of Cubbit. Hi, Marco.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Marco. And I'm Danilo, EMEA Sales Director at Cubbit. And today I'll guide you through the brief presentation of Cubbit before leaving the stage to Marco. So we are going to go very quickly through what is Cubbit, what are the peculiarities of our solution, and then we're going to go straight to the DS3 Composer, key points, and then live demo where you can get really like a flavor of how the solution looks like, the user experience, and all and everything basically. So we're going to try to have a very comprehensive session today, and we'll have Q&A at the end, but feel free in the meantime to drop us any question in the chat. So Cubbit is the first geo-distributed cloud enabler in Europe. So we have the pleasure today of presenting you Cubbit DS3 Composer, but to go back to who is Cubbit, what do we do, and where do we come from, I'd like to do like a very brief overview on where does the geo-distribution come from. We started from a network basically that we released in 70 countries across the world that has been very successful. This allowed us to really make a big experience in terms of how geo-distribution looks like and storage. We are today more than 50 employees, and we basically created a successful network in Italy to start with more than 300 enterprises, from small to very big companies that we're going to see in a bit. And we have now a company that is international with investment from players such as Barclays, Techstars, European Union, Gaia-X, and very big players in the financial services that have invested in Cubbit. So who do we work with? Actually, we have a solution that is cross-industry. So geo-distribution is basically something that can bring value to a lot of services. We have seen a lot of success from industrial manufacturing, as you can see, where companies like Bonfiglioli, they decided to store their data in Cubbit to secure their backup across multiple locations to make them immutable and to make them really ransomware proof. We have a lot of food and beverage public sectors where we're seeing an increasing number of municipalities that are deciding more and more to secure their data against attacks and to really have a solution that is sovereign within their own country. Transportation, many airports. So the solution is really cross-industry. Now, here you see just a small view of some of the industries. And then we go up to Leonardo, the defense sector. So for more than 40 billion revenue company in the defense space that decided their core business is defense, and they decided to defend their data with Cubbit. So we are very proud of this, and it's just a great testimonial of how security is crucial for us. So we're going to talk about that today, but this is a brief overview on how the solution can be really cross. Well, let's start with how the core. So how do we handle the files, right? So we encrypt your files at the beginning with IS-256 encryption, and then we split them and redundant it across your country, right? And with the redundancy that you decide to apply. So Marco is going to explain you more in details what does this mean. But basically, geo-distribution means that obviously your data is distributed where you decide it to be, and with the redundancy that you decide to apply. So the system is extremely versatile, and we have seen in Italy and in the new countries that we are opening internationally that really can enable you to basically accomplish several use cases where geo-distribution is key for a lot of, let's say, reasons, one of which is digital sovereignty. I mean, the fact that you can really decide where you want to deploy your cloud. So whether you are in Germany, whether you are in France, in the UK, or in any country, really, you can create your own geo-distributed cloud, right? The system is as 15 nines data durability, meaning we are above the industry standard in terms of data durability, which is key for all of our customers. And it allows you to predict also the cost you're going to face, right? So, which is actually preventing a lot of companies, general, to really move to the cloud. So how can I really predict what I'm going to spend at the end of the day if I might end up having huge costs associated to egress fees, to deletion fees, or all the costs that you don't see upfront. Cubbit is different because it really gives you a price that is all inclusive. So a transparent pricing, meaning, easier to predict, easier to forecast, and also is a lot cheaper than the hyperscaler pricing model. But this is something, that we can see in a separate step, but is key. And there is also the possibility of recycling your own infrastructures. That's why you see the sustainability on the right side. We can create, basically, we can recycle infrastructure, meaning you don't need to buy new hardware, and therefore, we add that sustainability bit to your project as well, which is key. The system can also be deployed in a zero knowledge, with a zero knowledge kind of approach, with your private gateway, KMS, etc. So it can be really, customized in its sense. Everything is encrypted. We are GDPR compliant, and we have the prestigious European cybersecurity label. So, across any country, you can ask us for the GDPR compliance certification as well, and the ISO, and we are good to go. And the ransomware protection obviously is key, right? So by geo-distributing all your files, it means that you have maybe 40 chunks, or how many chunks you decide to have geo-distributed, but you do not have any single point of attack, because the way we treat data, all the chunks are encrypted, and therefore the only person that can regroup the file is actually the company. So the owner of the file is the only one who has the logic to really reconnect everything. So how do we support that? So some of the features that enable these are, for example, object lock that makes your backup immutable. So which is key against ransomware attacks. We also have the versioning lifecycle where you can set your own policies. But the key to connect within your infrastructure are actually the AWS S3 APIs, right? So these enable us to be actually seamlessly integrated across your infrastructure. You see here some of our partners such as Veeam, QNAP, Commvault, Nakivo, you name it. So as long as they are S3 compatible, they tend to work great with us. And we already have a huge list in our docs.cubbit.io that you can check out, where you can see some of the most common integration that work in a very kind of plug and play mode. Use cases. So we mentioned data protection. So backup is definitely one of the most requested use cases. Active archiving, long-term archiving, IoT collaboration, log management. I mean, you name it. Any S3 use case is actually a great use case for Cubbit. With the peculiarity, as we said, that everything is geo-distributed, sovereign, within your own country, and within your own policies. So I just want to leave the mic to Marco to deep dive on what is DS3 Composer. So feel free to book an in-depth call with our team. We are more than happy to deep dive on your specific use case. And I would say the mic to you, Marco.
Thank you, Danilo. Thank you, Danilo. Okay, so let's have a deep dive on what the DS3 Composer is, how does it work, and how you can use it to start your own cloud provider. So, how does it work? Cubbit DS3 Composer is just an interface to our Cubbit DS3 ecosystem. So you can view it as an interface to our coordinator, which is the entity that is managing and controlling all the distributed infrastructure. So how does it work? You, as a user, you collect resources you have spread across different infrastructures. So, for example, you have some nodes in one data center. You may have nodes on the edge. You may have IoT nodes somewhere else, or you even may have some nodes in the public cloud as well. So you collect these resources and you can transform them in Cubbit nodes, in Cubbit storage nodes. To enable a storage node, you just have to install our agent on top of it, and voila, it gets transformed in a storage node, and you can then collect storage node in what we call a swarm. So a swarm is just a cluster of geo-distributed resources you may have spread across different regions or locations. Now you have a geo-distributed cluster of nodes, and you have a storage you can use to store your data. But in order to access it, you have to deploy a gateway, an S3 compatible gateway. So you can also deploy these gateways anywhere you want. So you can have one in the public cloud, you can have one in your data center, you can have one at the edge, and you can also have them with a cache with them to enhance the ingestion performance, and also to have some caches policies up and running near to your gateway. The main advantage of this infrastructure is that you have a single data domain across all your swarm, so you can access the same data from any location at the same time. So, for example, if you are ingesting data from the edge, for example, you have a lot of sensors and you have a gateway near to them to ingest the data into the swarm, the data gets replicated automatically in the locations you selected to be part of your swarm, and then you can access the same data from the public cloud, for example, and you may have an analytics suite there to run on your data, and to, for example, you may have a machine learning system there to collect all the data and to analyze them. So you can ingest them from one place and digest them from another place just in a matter of minutes. So let's see what are the steps to use this DS3 Composer to become a cloud provider in just 15 minutes. First, as I said, you need to create a swarm. So to create a swarm, you just collect the resources of your infrastructure. They can be physical, they can be on bare metal, they can be virtual, they can be also at the edge. You can use NAS systems. We work on NAS system as well. You can use I don't know, Raspberry Pis, a lot of ARM64 systems that work as well. So you connect all these resources together to our interface. Then you have your swarm. Next, you deploy a gateway, one or more gateway. You can have a gateway on premise. You can also install it on a public cloud, and you can scale it linearly to your ingestion rate. And finally, you create a tenant. A tenant is just a collection, a portion, let's say, of users and policies to access the data. So you can see them as I said, a specific portion isolated for data and metadata, especially. On the tenant, you can define the permissions, you can set up white labeling, you can have a personalized UI, And you can also deploy a personalized web console to access your data. We will see that in minutes. And finally, you just start doing business. So you have your storage, you have your tenant, you have your gateway, and you can now sell the storage to your customers. You can monitor, of course, the usage of the tenant. You can, of course, download reports. You can do billing, and you can do whatever you need to do to just doing business with your new created geo-distributed storage. So what are the advantages of this storage, of this distributed storage? It can run on any hardware. So it's, as I said, you can use ARM64, x86 CPUs, you can use Docker, you can use Kubernetes. It can run actually in any infrastructure you have. You have both private and public S3 access. You can use also the public gateway that Cubbit provides to access your data, but you can also install one or more private gateways to get access to your data. It's the interface you will see in a minute is really easy. So it's really easy to also for non-technical people to use it to configure this worm and the tenant. And of course, it's multi-tenant. So each tenant can be potentially operated by a different user, or we can say reseller. So you can create a very, say, professional ecosystem where you can have different people managing different stuff with different access policies, of course. So you can access the product in three, let's say, flavors. The first one is the easiest one, is the do-it-yourself. So you can use the DS3 Composer to build the geo-distributed cloud with the infrastructure you already own. So you can take the nodes in a data center you're not using. You can have some virtual machine that are spinning up and not working, and you are not doing anything with them. And you can collect them to create your swarm. Then there is the prêt-à-porter flavor. With this flavor, you can get a pre-configured and pre-certified configuration. We have some agreements with some providers across Europe, and we have pre-configured and pre-certified configurations depending on usually the customer needs. So, for example, we have for different workloads and business solutions, we have already some configuration we can suggest you that are already pre-certified. And then there is the DS3 Power flavor, and with this one you can use the DS3 Composer without having to set up all the swarm, because we have already provided some partners that are doing that for you. So you can access it as a pure SaaS flavor. So you just use the software there, and you don't have to configure anything at all. So these are the flavors, and now I want to show you how the products actually look like. So I'm changing between my screen. So here I'm inside the DS3 Composer interface. As you can see, I have two sections. One is called tenants and one is called swarms. As I said before, we need to start by creating our first swarm. So here I am. So create new swarm. For the purpose of this demo, I will call it demo. I don't have a lot of fantasy, I'm sorry. And demo swarm for webinar in my description. And I can create the swarm. Now, if I select this swarm, you can see that I have 0 bytes available. Of course, I didn't connect any nodes yet. So let's go in the nodes. So let's create the first node for our swarm. So let's create a node. For the purpose of this demo, I have set up 3 different machines in 3 different data centers. We have one in Paris. I hope you can see my screen here. I have already inside the machine. I have one machine in Amsterdam, and I have one machine in Milan. Okay, So these are the machines we are using for the demo. So I'm going to deploy a node in one of each these machines. So let's start with Paris. And here you can see, I can choose a focus description. You can also set a different provider to manage the node. So you can, for example, decide that you have a user that is responsible for a group of nodes, and they have managing them. So you can create a provider, and you can connect this node to that provider, so they get notification about the status of this node. And here you can choose the flavor, the strategy you want to deploy this node with. So for example, you can have it self-hosted, but we can also, we are working to integrate inside the UI here the possibility to create it directly from the UI without doing what I'm doing now, so without accessing the infrastructure directly. So I create the node. And now I have this piece of code. You can choose the different technologies. Now I use Docker for simplicity. So I go here, I go in Paris, I just paste the code, and the code now is starting. So you can see downloading the image, and now it's just start the image. Okay, it started. So if I go back, you can see I have the Paris node already available. It's offline at the moment, is just getting started. If I refresh the page now, it's online. So the node has been connected and is available to contribute to storage. As you can see, on top the banner says I have created one of 3 nodes needed. This is because we need to have at least 3 nodes to start a swarm at the moment. So let's just go back and create the second one. I'm going to create Amsterdam. And then let's go self-hosted again. Okay, let's copy the code. Let's go to Amsterdam. Let's start it. Let's go back. Let's create a new node. Let's call it Milan. Let's create it. Let's copy. Let's go. So if I go back to my swarm, now if I refresh it, just a matter of seconds, all the nodes will be available. Milan is still downloading, yes. Okay. Now it's getting started. Okay. So all of our 3 nodes are connected and the swarm is officially activated. If I go here, you can see I have 3 total nodes. I have no tenants connected to this swarm, and the total storage available is almost 300 gigabytes of storage, which is the sum of the storage available across the 3 nodes I connected. And of course, redundancy is already calculated here. So it's the storage you can actually use with this swarm. And the redundancy used here is 2 + 1. So I'm making half of the copy. And of course, it's not the most secure, let's say, redundancy scheme you can use here. But if you have more nodes, you can set up different schemes as well. Now, I have this swarm available here, demo. And now I have to create a tenant to connect with it. So let's go back. Let's go and create a tenant. First, you have to add this code, which is, let's say, a serial number to create a license to create the tenant. It will be provided with when you use the service. Let's create the tenant name. Also here, let's call it demo for the purpose of the demo. You can also upload images and logos for your tenant. And you can also select here the location of your public S3 gateway. So by default, we have the default one, we have France, and we have the one available for our public network that's called Next Generation Cloud, or NGC for short. Let's use the default one. So let's hit create, and the demo tenant is now created. As you see, as I start the tenant, as I get access to the interface, I have here a dashboard. And in this dashboard, you see I have no storage connected yet. So I need to connect this tenant to the swarm I just created. But you can also see I already have a public address for web console that has been deployed for me with the name of the tenant. So you can see I have console.demo, which is the name of the tenant, .cubbit.eu, and we can access, I will show you in a minute, the access through this web console. You can, and with that console, you can upload objects, you can do a lot of stuff. But let's connect the storage. So let's go here. You can see here we have a lot of different swarms we can select from, and I selected demo swarm I just created. Okay, so I connect the tenant to the demo swarm. So if I go back, you see that I connected the storage, the demo swarm to this tenant, and now the tenant is fully functional. So if I go here in the console, I have already a web console available to me. So I have an account here. Okay, and I'm inside my tenant web console. As you can see from the top, console demo AU workspace. So I start by creating a project. A project is just a collection of buckets, and a bucket is just a folder when I can upload my objects as an S3 standard way of doing things. So let's create the project. As usual, I call it demo, and let's go. My project has been created. So inside the project, I have access to this tenant. And as you can see, the tenant is just a web console, a web access to your files, as and other products have the web access as well. So, for example, you can think of this of the Dropbox interface for your DS3 storage. And as you can see here now from the back, you can see it's no storage yet. So let's go and create a bucket. I create a bucket and I call it Webinar Composer Bucket. As Danilo said before, here you can configure all the S3 related features. So for example, you can enable versioning, you can enable object lock, you can enable ACLs and ownership controls. But for the purpose of this demo, I will leave them all by default. So I create the bucket. I have the bucket here, and I select the bucket, and now I can just drag and drop. Let's see. Let's use this one. File. Voila, and the file has been uploaded to my tenant. So what happened here? My file get to the gateway, to the S3 gateway directly. Then it gets encrypted. It gets spread in multiple pieces. It gets split in multiple pieces. A redundancy mechanism is put on top, and then the pieces are spread across the 3 nodes I have running here. So these 3 nodes receive pieces of the files the file I just uploaded here. And from here, I can configure also, I can, of course, download it. I can configure access policies. I can invite more users to have access to this same bucket. I can configure policies. I can create groups. Each policy, I can create new policies. They can also become very complicated. You can give access to specific folders of specific buckets to specific users. And of course, everything is really configurable. So here you have the file. Of course, you can use also the CLI and all the S3 compatible third-party clients you want. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to use this section here, API keys, to create a new API key. Let's call it Cyberduck, which is the client I'm going to use. So I'm going to update the name, and I'm copying the access key and the secret key to access the this web console, this tenant from the client. So here I have Cyberduck running. It's just an S3 compatible third-party client. So I go here, I select Amazon S3, which is the protocol I'm going to use. I'm calling Cubbit DS3 webinar, the name of the drive. I'm going to copy the access key ID that I copied from here. There is the secret key as well. And if you go, if you go to Cubbit Composer here in the tenant section, you will see you also have this gateway URL here. I can copy this and put it inside here where the server is. So s3.demo.cubbit.io, I have the access key ID and the secret key. I think it didn't get copied. So let's go back here, copy, and paste. Okay. So now if I double click this, that's me for the last time for this, and now I have access to the same bucket, and I can double click, I can go inside it, and I can see all the files I just uploaded here. So let's close this, let's go back. I have the calendar here, I have the calendar here. If I want, I can also do like this, and I can download the file back. So this is just an example of a third-party client that you can use to connect to the storage. But of course, you can use backup clients. You can connect it from your NAS system directly to do backups on the system, and every file uploaded gets replicated automatically and geo-distributed across the location you choose. Just now, before giving back the word to Danilo, I just wanted to show you that inside here, the tenant section, you can actually configure a lot of more stuff. You can configure the sign-in with, you can add some notification preferences so you can be reminded where the storage is reaching a limit you want to be notified with. You can, of course, here you have access to the demo, and very soon you will be able to create your own private gateway. You can do it by here, and you can connect it to your tenant. You can also invite other users to manage this tenant and help you managing your storage. And you can set up white label, so you can configure anything inside this console, web console here. You can change the logo, you can change all the copy in the sign up, in the login, you can change your emails, you can change everything to brand to make it like your own brand. So I think it's everything I want to show you. As you said, as you've seen, has been a really fast demo, and in a matter of 15 minutes, maybe less, I just transformed some spare resources I have here spread across different data centers, and I just created a fully functional multi-tenant S3 compatible storage service. So thank you for the attention. I think here we can share back the slides, and we are ready to answer your questions.
Thank you, Marco. So we can go straight to the questions here. So Q&A session. In the meantime, you see the QR code there. Feel free to book a call with our team. So I will start with the first question. So what is the minimum number of nodes for a swarm?
The minimum number of nodes for a swarm at the moment is 3. So you need to create at least 3 nodes to have a swarm. That is because the redundancy mechanism that is behind the scenes needs at least this number of nodes to work in a positive way.
Okay. So second question, is there an internal backup solution available?
The answer is no. We don't have a proprietary backup solution available because we just implement this S3 protocol on top of our services. So you can choose of I don't know, 100, thousands available third-party applications that are specific for backup. So you can use whatever backup application you're already using, and you just connect the application to our backend.
Great. So we'll just go with a couple more questions. So the next one is regarding white label. Can you tell me a little bit more about white label and how to essentially use it with my clients?
Yeah, as I showed you before, there is this section inside the tenant, and inside it you can configure everything related to white label. You can choose a different name for your tenant. You can a different display name, so you can see in the login page you see welcome to your name, and you can change all the copy there. You can change the privacy policies. You can change a lot of stuff. Of course, you can change all the images and the logos, and very soon you will be able also to change the email flows. So you can choose a custom copy for your emails as well. So, and of course, last but not least, you can of course choose a different URL. So if you don't want console.demo.cubbit.eu and you want mycloudstorage.com, you can of course configure a custom DNS as well to connect to your tenant.
Great. So extreme customization in terms of the white labeling. So the last question is, in practice, should there be a ransomware attack on a node, what happens?
Very interesting question. It is possible that a node inside the data center is a victim of a ransomware attack, of course. You have to understand that inside the node there are only encrypted shards of a file. So if an attacker gets access to the node, it doesn't get access to anything sensible, any sensible data. And of course, the problem is that if a node gets encrypted, you don't have access to it. But the beauty of our solution is that you still have the other nodes to protect your data. And if you think about your encrypted data as lost, it's just as you have lost the node that in its completeness. So you can still access the data from the other nodes, and you can of course add more nodes and increase the redundancy, and you are okay. So if there is no problem if a ransomware attack one of your nodes, that's the answer.
Excellent. We have another question. So I have 2 Cubbit selling to different locations. Can I use them to set up a web DAV environment using the swarm?
The answer is yes, you can set up a web DAV server. The point is that we don't support web DAV protocol directly, but we support the S3. So it's possible to connect web DAV to S3. There are third-party projects. I think also some open source projects that you can use to do that. I remember doing that for a personal project back in the days. You can use S3 to connect to our to the swarm, and you can set up this connector, this WebDAV, let's say, translator from the WebDAV protocol to S3, and then you can connect to WebDAV. That's essentially it. There are also third-party clients. For example, there is one called Mountain Duck, and for macOS, if you check out my my GitHub profile, you can see I've implemented a virtual drive application for macOS that you can use to connect it to your storage directly, and you can have your files inside the Finder as you would have with Dropbox, for example. So if this is the need you're trying to solve, you can use either Mountain Duck, which is freely available, and you can use it to create your virtual drive and connect it to S3. Or you can use, if you have macOS, you can use this application to create your virtual drive and connect it directly to Cubbit.
Excellent. So thank you, Marco. We have you can see the link in the chat to book a call for more information. So I would say it's been a real pleasure having you here, and we'll be more than happy to deep dive with you in next steps. So hope the webinar was useful, and we are really looking forward to work with you on DS3 Composer across EMEA and internationally. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.